Near Venice, in the shallow, sun-drenched waters of the Scardovari Lagoon, a tradition as old as Italy itself unfolds each morning. Fishermen cast their nets, expecting a bounty of clams, the heart of the nation's beloved spaghetti alle vongole. For generations, this water has provided a livelihood, a heritage, a promise. But in the summer of 2023, that promise was broken. They pulled up nets filled not with treasure, but with monsters. An aggressive, alien creature they had never seen in such numbers. This was not just a bad catch. It was an omen. Something is happening in the waters surrounding Italy. A biological siege that is pushing an entire industry to the brink of collapse. The government's response would be desperate, bizarre, and ultimately transformative, challenging everything we thought we knew about ecological warfare. This is the silent war for the Mediterranean. The creatures in the nets were identified as Calanectes sapidus, the Atlantic blue crab. Native to the east coast of the Americas, they had somehow crossed over 4,000 miles of ocean to wage a devastating campaign. But this wasn't a sudden blitzkrieg. The invasion was insidious, playing out over decades. The first blue crab was spotted in Mediterranean waters in 1949, a lonely scout. For over 70 years they remained a footnote, their population quietly growing, adapting, and waiting. That moment has now arrived. Fishermen described the scene as a nightmare. Where they once found their heritage in beautiful clams, now there were only these monsters with blue claws, destroying everything. The epicenter of the invasion is the Po River Delta, one of Europe's most vital wetlands. The economic fallout was catastrophic, soaring to an estimated €100 million within months. In the lagoon of Scardovari, a clam farming paradise was rendered an underwater wasteland, with the crabs devouring up to 90% of the young clams, a blow that could cripple production for years. Marine biologists understood this was not random predation. It was a strategic dismantling of the food web. The invaders were targeting juvenile shellfish before they could reproduce. The crisis reached a fever pitch, with regional governors sending desperate pleas to Rome, warning that the livelihoods of thousands of families were at risk. The numbers were staggering. In the Veneto region alone, 326 tons of blue crabs were captured in just 1 year. Yet it made no difference. Their population continued to explode. Each female can produce up to 2 million eggs, and in the warming Mediterranean, they were reproducing at an accelerated rate. The farming lobby declared it a natural calamity. Italy was losing the war. A conventional response had failed. Faced with an enemy that could not be outfished, Rome allocated €2.9 million, not for research, not for containment, but for extermination. They placed a bounty on every blue crab, turning the nation's fishing fleet into a makeshift army. But it wasn't enough. For every crab they caught, 10 more seemed to take its place. Then, Italy's leadership made a decision that stunned observers worldwide. The strategy shifted from brute force to bizarre spectacle. Governor Luca Zaia held a press conference, holding up 2 live, snapping blue crabs for the cameras, declaring that they were breaking everything and causing unmitigated disaster. The image was a declaration. Italy was fighting for its survival. But it was Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni who escalated the campaign into something no one saw coming. During her summer vacation, she posted photographs of herself eating blue crabs. This wasn't a casual holiday meal. It was a calculated act of political theater. The symbolism was unmistakable. If Italy couldn't poison or trap its enemy, it would devour it into submission. The message was sent to the entire nation. Your greatest threat is now your newest delicacy. Fishermen began selling the crabs for €8 per kilogram. What was once a pest was becoming profitable. But skeptics scoffed, warning that a national emergency could not be solved with a cookbook and that this was a dangerous illusion. While the nation debated, scientists were uncovering a far more disturbing truth. The timing of this invasion wasn't a coincidence. It was a symptom of a much larger crisis. The first mystery was how the crabs crossed the Atlantic. The answer? They were stowaways, traveling in the ballast water of transoceanic ships. For decades, massive cargo vessels have been sucking up water in one ocean and discharging it in another, creating invisible biological highways across the planet. This wasn't a single accident. It was a systemic failure of global shipping. But the true scale was even greater. Scientists discovered a second invasive crab species had been simultaneously invading from the Red Sea through the Suez Canal. Two different alien armies were attacking the Mediterranean from opposite ends. The final piece of the puzzle was the most alarming. Why, after 70 years, did their population explode now? A team of ecologists made a chilling discovery. Blue crabs' metabolism, their ability to grow and reproduce, is optimized at around 24 degrees Celsius. It was the exact temperature the Mediterranean was now reaching due to climate change. We hadn't just given them a ride here. We had prepared the perfect environment for their conquest. The warming seas had become the ideal breeding ground. To make matters worse, these crabs weren't just invaders. They were environmental engineers. Researchers discovered they were dramatically increasing water turbidity by churning up sediment, blocking the sunlight needed for seagrass to grow. They weren't just eating the ecosystem, they were demolishing its foundations. This wasn't random destruction. It was a hostile terraforming operation, ensuring that even if the crabs were removed, native species could not easily recover. Italy wasn't just fighting a crab. It was fighting the consequences of a globally altered climate. So, did Italy's radical strategy of eating its way out of a crisis actually work? To find the answer, we must look to Tunisia, a nation that faced the same invasion nearly a decade earlier and had already written the script.
Initially, Tunisia saw the crab as a catastrophe, but necessity bred innovation. They transformed the pest into a pillar of their economy. Today, dozens of facilities in Tunisia export thousands of tons of blue crab a year, employing thousands of people. Researchers observed a remarkable shift. The same fishing communities who once wanted the species to disappear were, within a decade, petitioning their government to protect the crabs to ensure a sustainable harvest. They had turned their greatest enemy into their most valuable asset. Back in Italy, the same transformation was beginning. Italian consumers didn't just accept blue crab, they embraced it. Demand grew so fast that supply chains struggled to keep up. The €2.9 million bounty for elimination was quietly being redirected towards developing a sustainable new fishing industry. Prime Minister Meloni's publicity stunt had, against all odds, worked. It created the cultural acceptance needed to turn a national emergency into an economic opportunity. But this is not a story with a simple, happy ending. While commercial fishing can control crab populations, it cannot undo the damage. Native species have been decimated. The very chemistry of the water has changed. The Mediterranean has been permanently altered. Scientists now realize they are witnessing the birth of an entirely new ecosystem. The blue crab is no longer just an invader. It has become a permanent keystone species, shaping all future ecological relationships. The Mediterranean of the past is gone forever. It is being rewritten at the genetic level into something new. A novel ecosystem
forged by globalization and climate change. The silent war in Italy's waters is over. But it wasn't won. It was adapted to. The story of the blue crab is a chilling glimpse into our future. A future where we may no longer be fighting to preserve the old world, but learning to survive in a new one of our own making. The question is no longer how we defeat our monsters. The question is, can we learn to live with them?